Hello guys, I am one of the members of Group 9 GIBULAGAN, and today I will introduce to you my group mates. So first, for Chapter 1, we have Lauren May Valenzuela and Leia Marie Suarez. For Chapter 2, we have Abigail Templa and Ella May Saling. And Chapter 3, we have Badayas Edgerlin. And Chapter 4, Malini Ardenisa Cervantes. And now, I will present to you our group presentation.
Hello guys, I am Valenzuela Lauren May and I belong to Group 9. Today, I will share the subtopic of Chapter 1, the basic concepts in assessment of learning. The subtopic is the first, the domain of NCBTS. First, the social regard for learning. Second, the learning environment. Third, the diversity of the learners. Fourth, curriculum. Fifth, planning, assessing and reporting. Sixth, community linkages. Lastly, seventh, personal growth and professional development. Next, a subtopic for most commonly used terms and testing. The test, measurement, assessment, and evaluation. Next, the classroom assessment. A method for observing, gathering, examining, and evaluating data that can be utilized to make inferences and guide decision. Next, the four essential components of implementing classroom assessment. First is to monitor students' learning, measure what students have and not have learned, and grade them. Second is to provide feedback of students' performances. And third, to motivate the students by giving them positive reinforcement. Next is the purpose of classroom assessment. There are four purposes, and it could be summed up into three. First, the assessment for learning. Second, the assessment of learning. And third, the assessment as learning. Assessment for learning is done to improve and ensure. Assessment done before or during instruction. Next, the assessment of learning. It assists teachers in using evidence of students learn to assess achievement against outcomes and standards for grading purposes. It is done after. Next is the assessment as learning. Occurs when students assess themselves. They monitor their own learning, ask questions, and use a variety of strategies for learning based on their own. Next is the principles of assessment. But the purpose of the principle is to identify areas for strategic change or improvement, concentrating on concepts and making use of fundamental assessments techniques to enhance the teaching learning process in order for students to complete a learning process successfully. It is important to start with a clear understanding of what they must perform. For me, this subtopic is so interesting because this can be used to identify the students who are already familiar with the lesson, to ascertain the root reason of learning difficulties and develop a plan to addressing them. Students receive knowledge and direction from assessment for learning, so they may plan and oversee the following stages of their learning. Information is used in assessment for learning to guide students from what they have already learned to what needs to be taught next. This is important since it establishes whether or not educational objectives are being reached. Assessment is a crucial component of instruction. Grades, placement, advancement, instructional needs, curriculum, and in some situations, funding decisions are influenced by assessment. As a potential teacher, knowing whether or not my students have shortcomings will help me determine what needs to be done for them. This has a significant impact on how students and teachers reflect on the issues they currently address.
Hello guys, I am Leia Marie Suarez and I belong to Group 9 GIBULAGAN. So I will continue Lauren Valenzuela's introduction about the subtopics in Chapter 1, Basic Concepts in Assessment of Learning. So these are the subtopics. Let's start in recent trends in classroom assessment. So recent trends in classroom assessment have emerged. Heavy objective testing at the end of an instruction is being replaced by alternative assessments that may be done during the teaching process. Next is non-testing. Non-testing is an alternative assessment in the sense that it diverts from the paper and pen test. Under non-testing, there are two major techniques in it. It is called the performance-based assessment and portfolio assessment. Next is portfolio. A portfolio is a purposeful collection of student work that exhibits the student's efforts, progress, and achievements in one or more areas of the curriculum. Its purposes and characteristics have been discussed in this chapter. Different types of portfolio. So there are three types: the documentation portfolio, process portfolio, and the third one is showcase portfolio. Next is roles of assessment in making instructional decisions. So there are four categories that classify the assessment of the students. First is a placement assessment. The second one is formative assessment. Third is the diagnostic assessment. And the fourth one is summative assessment. So commonly used assessments in the classroom. There are two commonly used assessments during instruction also. It is called formative and summative assessment. There are two approaches useful for instructional purposes also. It is called the norm and criterion reference interpretation. Lastly, nature of measurements. Measurement is the process of assigning numbers to events based on an established set of rules. So for me, all of these subtopics in Chapter 1 are so interesting because this will help me as a future educator on how I will assess my students' capability and things. The right assessment in learning to be able to be a teacher that is capable in giving out the right assessment process and also principles that are associated with it.
Hello guys, I'm Abigail Templa and I belong to Group 9 GIBULAGAN. Today I will share to you a Chapter 2 title, Principles of High Quality Classroom Assessment. This subject is unproductive tests. This is all about that tests should not be used as the only determinants in grading a student. Most tests do not accurately reflect a student's performance or true abilities. Furthermore, it does not give students the adequate time to prepare. For me, this subject is so interesting because, as we know, test serves a lot of functioning for schools, administrations, supervisors, teachers, and parents as well. Testing is a part of learning and lets students show what they know and what they can do. Test results show students' strengths, and you will learn also subject areas where students excel in. And also, test results show students' weaknesses. And as a future educator, it is important for us to know this is so that we all aware and be informed professionally that it does not promote efficient learning or higher achievements using tests to deride students and tests without continuous re-evaluation. It is often a serious disservice to a label of a student, even if the label is positive, like impromptu activity or quizzes that students allow them to be unprepared on what they need to do in that day. It is composed or uttered without previous preparation.
Hello guys, good day. I am Elamay Saling and I belong to the group GIBULAGAN. Today I will share a subtopic in Chapter 2, the Principles of High Quality Classroom Assessment. The subtopic is entitled Assessment Methods. This is all about the nature of the assessor's actions and include examine, interview, and test. The examine method is the process of reviewing, inspecting, observing, studying, or analyzing one or more assessment objects like specifications, mechanisms, or activities. So first method is the validity. This refers to the extent to which the test serves its purpose with which it intends to measure. Validity is a characteristic that pertains to the appropriateness of the inferences, uses, and results of the test or any other method utilized to gather data. There are factors that influence the validity of the test, namely appropriateness of test items, directions, reading vocabulary and sentence structures, patterns of answers, and arrangement of items. Validity is always determined by professional judgment. However, there are different types of evidence to use in determining validity. The following major sources of information can be used to establish validity. First is content-related validity. Second is criterion-related validity. Next is construct-related validity. Then phrase validity. And lastly, instructional-related validity. So to continue, let's proceed to test validity enhancers or classroom assessment. And some of those are: prepare a table of specifications, construct appropriate test items, and arrange the test items from easy to difficult. So next method is reliability. So this refers to the consistency with which a student may be expected to perform on a given test. It means the extent to which a test is dependable, self-consistent, and stable. There are factors that affect test reliability, and this include the scorer's inconsistency, limited sampling, changes in the individual examinee, and testing environment. There are also four methods in estimating the reliability of a good measuring instrument. First is test-retest method or test of stability. Second, parallel method or test of equivalence. Third, split half method. And fourth, internal consistency method. So this good reliability measurement allows educators to make decisions that improve the lives of their students, both academically and socially, as this concept teach educators how to quantify the abstract goals their school or district has set. Next method is fairness. So the concept that assessment should be fair covers a number of aspects, including student knowledge and learning targets of assessment, opportunity to learn, prerequisite knowledge and skills, avoiding teacher stereotype, and avoiding bias in assessment tasks and procedures. So next assessment method is positive consequences. So this means learning assessment provides students with effective feedback and potentially improve their motivation and self-esteem. Moreover, assessments of learning give students the tools to assess themselves and understand how to improve. The positive consequence should possess on students, teachers, parents, and other stakeholders. So lastly, practicality and efficiency. So assessment needs to take into consideration the teacher's familiarity with the method, the time required, the complexity of the administration, and the ease of scoring and interpretation. It is something practical and something effective in real situation. A practical test is one which can be practically administered, and tests can be made more practical by making it more objective or more controlled items. And for me, the subtopic is so interesting because it helps the teachers plan her lesson effectively. It works as a roadmap to let the teacher know if all the objectives set out at the beginning of the lesson have been met or not. Not only does it serve the student, but it also serves the teachers. The results of such assessments done over a period of time then help evaluate student progress. This also helps the students motivate themselves. Assessments also help teachers better understand at work and what didn't in their classes. Although learning ought to be kept learner-centric, it is imperative that the teachers know what they're doing. So that's it. Thank you and good bless.
Hello guys, I am Adreline Badayos and I belong to Group 9. Today, I will share to you a subtopic in Chapter 3 which is Social, Legal, and Ethical Complications of Tests. So this is all about the conduct and responsibilities in use of assessments that can be ordered in 3 levels. First, we have the legal issues, the ethical issues, and the social issues. So it is difficult to define the boundaries and distinctions between social, ethical, and legal issues or concerns surrounding the development and use of tests and assessments. So legal, ethical, and social issues form a continuum of standards for professional conduct in assessments in other areas. Laws and government regulations are legal mandates that affect all individuals living in a society. Ethical codes may range from enforceable to exemplary to educational principles that guide behavior and conduct of the person. Social guidelines, principles, and standards are also developed to educate and guide person in more technical activities. All 3 layers of regulations or standards exist in testing and assessment. Laws and legal documents about testing and assessments are generally vague and ambiguous, but it is clear that where they exist, they have greatly influenced standards of conduct and practices in assessment and testing. Government involvement and regulation of testing is most evident in personal testing, but even here, laws and legal challenges to testing are limited to every specific domains. So, for me, this subtopic is so interesting because these testing have a strong effect on the lives and careers of young people, and for me as future educator as well. Decisions taken within and by schools influence the prospects and opportunities of their pupils, and of even greater importance are the results of national tests and examinations. When the results of tests and examinations are used to pass judgments on teachers and schools, they also affect the ways in which pupils are taught. Given their importance, it is essential that results of summative assessments should reflect and influence school learning in the best possible way, and at the same time, it is acknowledged that a number of issues need to be addressed in implementing a system making use of teachers' assessment. So some key requirements are 4 robust and permanent procedures for quality assurance and quality control of teachers' judgments, the provision of developmental criteria which indicate a progression in learning related to particular goals, teachers to have access to well-designated task assessing skills and understanding which can help them to make judgments across the full range of learning goals, and for pre-service and in-service professional development that extend teachers' understanding and skills of assessment for different purposes.
Hello guys, I am Malinir Denisa Cervantes and I belong to Group 9 Gibulagan. Today, I will share a subtopic in Chapter 4 which is the factors influencing test construction and test performance. So this is all about the factors that influence test construction, and there are several factors that influence the type of test a teacher has to conduct. So first, let's talk about how the test works in the instructional process. So it means that teachers must be defined the purpose of testing before moving on the test design. Second, testing frequency. This depends on what purpose the test is supposed to fulfill. Frequent testing can help the teachers direct and guide the students to appropriate course of the objective is to provide feedback, especially in the early stages of learning. Additionally, this might aid learner in acquiring knowledge as effectively as possible. The third is the use of both an open book and closed book exams. The use of books and notes during exam is permitted during open books exam. This is advised with the instructors emphasize some of the higher Bloom taxonomy objectives. On the other hand, a closed book test is suggested and ought to be used with the test emphasize free recall of knowledge. Fourthly, the text home exam serves as an extension of the point of the open book test. The benefit is the students can work at their own pace and their own leisure, utilizing any references that available to them. The test item can be presented in a variety of ways, including orally in writing on the board, a memograph, and project on a screen according to the fifth mode of item presentation. So the next subtopic is all about the extraneous factors that influences performance. So this means that maximum performance tests, achievements, intelligence, and aptitude require the students to receive the highest scores, while typical performance tests, attitudes, interests, and personality inventory called for students to receive scores without putting in a lot of effort. So the extraneous factors, which is frequently overlooked, also have an equal or greater impact. This might consist of the following. So first, test sophistication or test wiseness. Test taking aptitude is defined as the capacity of the test taking to improve his or her score by utilizing the feature and structures of the test and or the test taking environment. Practice is the second. Numerous studies demonstrate that taking a subsequent exam or particular test or its parallel revision results a higher test scores. This will aid the test taker in raising his or her marks on the subsequent administrator of the same test or any of its equivalents. Coaching comes next. As long as the objective questions are very simple, the effects of coaching is less significant than the benefit produced by practice. To be followed by the anxiety and motivation. A little anxiety may be beneficial, but excessive anxiety frequently results in subpar performance. Motivated students perform better than those who are not. The last category is response styles, which refers to a test-taking practice that lead people with similar ability to receive varied test results. So for me, as a future educator, this subtopic is so interesting because it will help as a future educator to determine features such as length, format, level of data required and answers, and the time frame for returning results to the students. Also, it is important part of assessing students' understanding of course content and their level of competencies in applying what they are learning. Furthermore, this information can also help for me as a future educator to identify the areas in which students need further work and can also help to assess the test itself where the question worded clearly was the level of difficulty appropriate. If scores are uniformly high, for example, the student may be doing everything right or have an unusual good class. On the other hand, his or her test may not have measured what they intended it. Lastly, as a future educator, this subtopic is really helpful because by this, we as a future educator can help our students to identify their own obstacles and even begin to resolve them so that they can learn course materials and effectively demonstrate their knowledge on exam.